So, Tzipora, why are you single? Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. Today, I am so humbled and honored to be here with a guest that I'm so personally inspired by. I'm literally in awe of her. She is a singles advocate. You've definitely heard her speak before. Welcome, Tzipora Grodko.
Hi, Ayala. Thanks for having me. That was a really generous MC intro. I don't live up to it, but I will try. That was so sweet. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. So Tzipora goes around speaking about the Shidduch crisis, whether there is one, whether there isn't one. She's a singles advocate. Tell us about the work you do as a singles advocate and how you got into it.
Oh, okay. I'd be happy to. So the singles advocacy work is the least cool thing I've ever done in my life. It's a very cringy title. It's a title that's evolved naturally simply because it was what I was doing, advocating for singles. Like back in the day in camp, I was, as a kid, I always wanted to be like on Broadway or in plays. I know your options are pretty limited as an orthodox Jew, so I don't really know where I was fantasizing. But I thought that if I would become pretty popular, it would be for something that was not a manifestation of one of my greatest challenges, which has been navigating the single world.
You and everyone else.
Yeah. So how did it happen? I want to say that I was really frustrated seeing how much pain those I cared about and those I met were in based off of something that wasn't in their control, based off of a circumstance that wasn't something they thought they had any free will in. What do I mean by that? A lot of their pain wasn't simply by being single, but it was by how people were being treated because they were single. And accepting that as their reality, accepting that as this is the treatment I deserve. This is my form of fact. If I am single, it means something must be wrong with me. It means I must not be likable. It means I must not be pretty enough, successful enough, wanted enough. And living with those sort of realities, which are the foundation of how we view ourselves, is dreadful. It's depressing. It's anxiety invoking. You can't live. You can't be happy. And trying to live a lifestyle like that and staying religious is borderline impossible.
Right.
So over time, I want to say I turned 29. I was at another Shabbos table with a group of people that were complaining because that's what a lot of people do when they're in pain, complain. Mm-hmm. And I kind of said, what are we going to do about it? Because I don't want to talk about this again. Talking about it just festers the negative energy and there's no purpose. And everyone around the table said all of their grand ideas that they were going to do when they had a ring on their finger, because the fear of doing it earlier would compromise any potential prospects. And I understood that. And again, that sort of became reality. Of course we can't say something. Of course we can't do something, believing that man is in control of our outcome instead of God, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I turned 29, I was in Guatemala, and there's really no other way to explain it other than I had this confidence I've never had in my life that this is what God wants me to do. I need to give this one talk in my local shul, simply saying, I think that you all don't realize the harm you're causing, so I just want to educate you. That was my goal. It was a simple talk. It was endorsed by rabbinic figures, and endorsed matchmakers, and my entire shul, so that people knew it wasn't just Tzipora Grodko having group therapy, but rather Tzipora Grodko saying something that people really supported. Because the biggest concern is that for some reason, if you're not married, you don't have credibility and quality.
Right.
As if getting married gives you this endowment. And I've had this even as a psychotherapist. I've had friends that experience it as a doctor. People will say, well, you're not married, I don't want to see you. Huh? I don't understand that.
No.
Yeah.
People say you're a single doctor, so I don't want to see you.
They get concerned, well, not to me because I'm not a doctor,
right.
but to people I know, there's this feeling
God.
of inadequacy, something must be inadequate, which is a truth that is very false, that we're trying to publicize, not just for the community, but really for the individual themselves. If people have worked so hard to achieve a certain goal and then believe it's not enough because they're not considered a success since they're not yet married. Like, you can't live that way.
It's kind of disturbing that you even have to go around saying people are enough even if they're single. Like, people are worthy even if they're single. Like, that's kind of actually really disturbing.
It's you know what? I think it's just like, it's really been very subliminal. I don't think people realized they were doing it. I don't think people realized it was happening until someone said something.
Right.
And so I really just intended to give this one talk only because I felt this confidence in my blood at 29. I remember thinking, this is what I think God wants me to do.
Wow.
It wasn't a purpose mission. It wasn't a passion project. It was like, oh, on Tuesday, this is something I'm going to do. I feel like I'm supposed to. I'm going to go with that will, and then we'll be done. I don't want to be remembered for it. I don't want it to be echoing anywhere. I'm just going to talk in my local shul, and that's it. It was recorded. It was uploaded onto YouTube. It went viral, and that sort of led to this interview that we're having right now.
You're seriously like Queen Esther. It's like, this is why you were here. Obviously, no one knows why anyone's single, but it just feels like this is so in alignment with your mission. And like, thank God that you're able to do this really important work. And maybe this is why. Who knows?
Who knows?
God willing. So, Tzipora, why are you single?
I am sure everyone is thinking it. And I said this to you earlier, but the cameras weren't rolling, that I was once at a restaurant and someone came up to me and said, just tell me the secret. What's wrong with you? And I said, excuse me, what? I'm sorry. And she said, come on, like, something must be wrong with you. If you're single, what is it? I won't tell anyone. And I think that just highlights our cultural issue, which is if things don't go according to the societal timeline of when we expect things should happen, then something must be wrong. And just because someone is single does not mean something is wrong with them. Yeah. The same way if someone didn't have a baby yet, people wouldn't say, why are you not pregnant?
Right.
If someone doesn't have a larger income, people wouldn't say, how come you don't have more money? People would assume things didn't work out according to that plan yet. For some reason, we give like more control to life's blessings in other areas like money, health, children, success. But in Shidduchim, we're like, no, it's not in God's control, it's in man's control. So if you haven't been able to control that aspect of your life, something must be wrong with you.
Right. I love how you said, I've heard you say before, like, we don't say there's a fertility crisis. We don't say there's a money crisis. But with Shidduchim, like, there's a Shidduch crisis.
Correct.
And it's totally, it's not true.
Correct. Yeah.
You said there's a Ben Adam Lechavero crisis. Is that right?
There we go. You can give my talk. Yes.
So can you like describe? Yeah, because I totally agree.
Yeah. So unfortunately, during COVID, so many people passed away. People weren't walking around saying there's a Yasom crisis. Right. There were so many people that were left without parents, without a parent. Because again, crisis indicates something's out of control. And I don't believe anything is out of control. I believe everyone's on their own journey, has their own process. And let's say something is wrong with someone. Let's say there is a reason. I'm not calling it an issue because it's their life, it's their process, it's their journey. Just because I don't agree with it or I don't like it doesn't mean it's an issue. Let's say there's a reason someone isn't yet married. That's part of their process and their journey and their tikkun. Hashem gave them challenges that are a part of what is expected of their process of development out of life. So I don't believe there's a crisis. I think crisis instills fear. It completely neglects God. It says man's in control and not God. I think the way we treat people is the issue, and that's what's in our control.
Right.
So if we infuse people with encouragement, with respect, with dignity, we see people as people, not as a status, then the whole world will be a happier, healthier, more wholesome place. Growing up after seminary, I used to wonder, it was a big concern of mine, how can I maintain these lessons and this level of religiosity that I really want to hold myself by? Because as time progressed, I can see that people change, and I don't know if I want to change in that sort of way. Now I've learned to appreciate that just because something changes physically doesn't mean things have changed spiritually. You know, Judaism is so much more complex than black and white. But I remember thinking, that it seemed like certain communities or people would downgrade spiritually, halachically, if they stayed single. How come? And I've learned that we gravitate towards where we feel comfortable. And so if a community is pushing someone away because they don't blend in socially, then we don't want to stay connected to that community. We go closer towards community where we feel more respected and accepted. And that could be a secular work environment, that can be a secular world, that can be vacationing to another country for long periods of time, because we want to go where we feel like our dignity is being met. And unfortunately, if someone's dignity is compromised because they have no value until they're married, then you don't want to stay there.
So it has major ramifications, obviously, the shidduch crisis, or the perceived shidduch crisis, because it makes people feel like they're nothing, they're worthless if they're not married, which is horrific and so not Jewish. And you're right about how we totally undermine Hashem's hashgacha and totally just belittle all the singles. And it's absolutely disheartening to call a shachan and have them ask you what you're looking for and ask you all these questions, and the vibes are just not there. Like, the vibes are just not it.
Yeah. I like to think that if somebody was going to a doctor because they weren't well, there's two ways they could operate. One is very transactional. Oh, this person has cancer. How are you feeling? What are your symptoms? When can you come in? And another one that says, hi, oh, you're a mom. Wow, that must be really hard for you. Yeah, it must be really difficult. I'm going to do whatever I can to help you. It's out of my hands, but I can guarantee you you're in the best care. One person will walk away from that phone call feeling hopeful. One person will walk away from that phone call feeling worried, feeling dejected, feeling sad, feeling hopeless.
Yeah.
So any person in any field, especially a matchmaker, has a responsibility. And I think that we've become desensitized to realize how painful the process is. And this isn't just for the single. This is for the parent. This is for the sibling.
So true.
It's a very scary, painful process. And therefore, tremendous sensitivity and care is needed, not because we're in a woke 2024 world where everyone is incapable of processing feedback because of their emotional inaptitude. That's not what I'm referencing. I'm referencing a very silent pain that's never been addressed, so that we could stop normalizing being indifferent to the pain and the challenge that people experience.
Yeah.
So that we can help them feel like they can be happy and healthy and have enriched relationships until that challenge ends.
It's so sad that a lot of people really do think that their life just begins when they get married. Yes. What do you think are some of the ways that the Orthodox community manifests alienating people or ostracizing singles or just leaving them out, making them feel other because they're single?
Yeah.
How do you think that makes itself manifest in the Orthodox community?
Excellent question. So firstly, at work, whenever people say there's a work event and they say you could bring a +1, you can bring your husband. I have a friend at work who's not married, and she reached out and said, oh, I'm not married. Can I bring a friend? And they said, no, a +1's only for a husband. She felt awful. There were people younger than her who were bringing their partner. Why should she have to come alone? So we should change our language. +1, hey, everyone's invited and you can bring a husband as your +1.
Yeah.
Everyone is invited and you can bring a +1. It can be anyone. It happens when people, I don't know why this happens, but people are simply dismissed socially if they're in a social group and they're just not married. Someone just may feel like they don't know how to talk to them. They don't know how to engage with them. They don't know how to ask them about anything, because very often socializing can be very simplistic. Like, oh, how are your kids doing? Is your husband here? Oh, does he know my husband? And it's no one's fault that we just kind of sometimes lose like the value of socializing. Sometimes it has to just be light. But I think that people get so uncomfortable with someone's positionality that they don't even know what to say. Like, I've been in circumstances where people will say like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. And everyone around me is married. And they'll say, are you married? And I'll say, no. And they're like, how old are you?
So weird.
And that tone reflects shock. And I always say, well, I don't know if I say it. I probably don't. But I think, like, if you're not ready for an answer, don't ask a question.
Right.
So, which is okay. Again, people aren't usually intentional about their speech. So, and I'll say my age, and they'll say like, oh, okay, Emir Tashem, it should happen soon. And they get so uncomfortable that they feel like they have to clean the slate with the discomfort, and then I'm sometimes like ignored because they almost forget how to like engage with me. Like, so, and I say like, you can ask anything, like how's work,
Right. You
how's
have
my
so much
day,
going on.
or you can give me a compliment and say I look amazing. At weddings, unfortunately, if
Oh
someone is
my God.
single, there's no communication other than what are you looking for, and soon by you it will happen. What are you looking
It's
for?
like we've
and soon by
deduced
you.
people just to their status of being single. You
I
have
don't know
every
why.
like
Yeah.
all the depth, all the vibrancy, everything going for you. So such a rich life with
Mhm.
as a single. So it's actually really sad, and probably people don't know better, but like people need to learn a bit more socially what's acceptable, because you can't just say like, "Oh, are you single?" No, that's so sad. We have to learn that there's more to a person than their status of being single.
Yeah, and if you don't know, if someone's not an expert conversationalist and they're just kind of working with what they have, then you don't have to converse with this person.
Right.
You can do what Mesilas Yesharim says, which is when you see someone, you greet them with the warmest smile that you have. Hi, so good to see you. Enjoy the wedding.
Right. Right.
So I would say, you ask like, where does this manifest? It manifests at weddings, it manifests at workplace, it manifests at Shabbos meals,
Ooh,
where
yeah.
all anyone wants to talk to them about is their dating life. And I want everyone listening to imagine like someone didn't have air to breathe, and everywhere they went, everyone was just trying to give them ideas on how they could breathe. And they're expected to respond with positivity, with appreciation, maybe even being like vulnerable about how difficult it is for them. And it's so private, but yet because it's presented so publicly, people think it's okay to talk about. And I want people to know that two things. One, it shouldn't be a social norm to socialize about it all the time. It's too difficult and painful. And if someone's at a different occasion, a different setting, a celebration, they want to enjoy that. They don't want to remember their greatest vulnerability,
Right.
their greatest pain. If someone, again, putting things in perspective, didn't have a baby yet, you wouldn't bring it up all the time.
You would never ask them. It's not sneeze.
It's not. And then someone might say like, oh, but what if I have an idea and I'll tell you a secret? Well, it's not a secret anymore because everyone's listening, but it was. When I'm at a wedding and someone says to me, I have a great idea for you. What are you looking for? I'll say, which I understand, it's so kind, and it's on the spot, and so they want to talk about it. But what they don't realize is that maybe 9 other people also wanted to talk about it. I'll say, it's so sweet of you. Call me after the wedding, and I'd love to tell you because it's loud and
right.
It's not the right time.
And
Again,
it's like
if someone wasn't fertile at a wedding, I would hope someone wouldn't say, I have a fertility treatment. I want to talk to you about it. So I'll say to them, talk to me about it after the wedding. And Ayala, and they'll say like, great, no one has ever called me after the wedding, which to me, maybe they forgot, but to me, it almost seems like it was just like they wanted to schmooze, they wanted to chat. They were curious to maybe hear.
Yeah.
They thought maybe I'll know something or someone. But again, if someone was interviewing for a job, I would hope that someone wouldn't say, I think I might have something for you, knowing that they're desperate for income, and then say, oh, never mind, it's not what you're looking for. I would hope they would say, wow, you're interviewing for a job? Like, okay, like I know it's so draining. Do you want to talk to me about what you're looking for now or maybe later? Because like it's a lot.
It's like my single status is not small talk. It's not.
Exactly.
And I'm also just always so awed at the fact that I feel people expect us to have like a shopping list ready to go of what we're looking for, which is kind of a joke. It's like my friend literally made a rap. She's so funny. My friend's like 6 feet, 6 figures. It's like this whole rap. I can't even, it's so funny. But like, what are we supposed to have? Because it's like a joke. Like, are we supposed to have off the top of my head, oh, this, that, and the third? Like, it's organic. Like,
Right.
It's the other half of my neshama. Like, I don't have, like, should I take out a piece of paper? I just feel so shocked every time at how we're so robotic.
Right. We're really forced to simplify it because we do need to use words to express what we want. But again, if it's not the right setting and time and someone knows that, then they're forced to simplify something that may not be so simple. They're forced to say like, oh, let me just tell her my top 3 things because it's not the right time, it's not the right setting. We're probably going to get interrupted any minute now. And in our, I would say like socially and culturally, people are very quick to be very exclusive about what they think they need, and therefore say like, well, I want someone that is these three things, and that's all that really matters. For example, I'm sure you've heard this. Someone will say like, oh, are you looking for someone learning or working? Oh, learning. Okay, how many years? 2. Okay, I know someone for you. How's that possible?
I'm crying.
Do you know what I'm referencing?
Yeah,
Like,
of course. That's what I'm talking about.
yeah.
The simplifying and the deducing of us, not only as like just singles, but also as the fact that all we're looking for is a guy who was in Kollel for 2 years, or like he should learn at a night Seder twice a week. Oh, you have someone? Okay, good. It's my bashert. Like what?
Yeah.
We're full people with depth and like multifaceted people. Like that's what I don't understand about the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's I wonder actually if people believe that they shouldn't ask for more, because the conversation is so brisk that they think like, well, this is all I should kind of want and focus on. And I just think, like you said, it's become small talk, and it's really not small.
Oh, not at all.
So,
and it perpetuates this victim consciousness around being single, which I really don't like when me and like my girlfriends are hanging out and it's just like this pity party victim consciousness about being single, because we have so much to look forward to. Like the best is yet to come.
Yes.
And we're in like, if we were secular, we would be totally normal, totally on track, killing it at life.
Oh yeah.
But because we're now it's like a boo-hoo pity party. It's really sad. And it's like and it's the best girls you can imagine. Like the best girls who are like feeling like they're not worthy, they're not enough. It's such a problem. I'm so happy that you like talk about this.
Yeah, I like to say like the greatest gift in the world is time. And when someone is single and they're not meeting the social construct of where people think they should be, time is something they become shameful of. And that's like one of the greatest losses in the world, to become so ashamed of the greatest gift. People don't want to celebrate their birthdays. People don't want to share their age. And it's the greatest gift of life, time. But you learn to really hate it, because you think that as time goes on, your value goes down if you haven't been married. And that's how can you be happy? How can you be happy like that?
I know so many people who aren't happy, and they're thinking that when I get to that finish line, when I was becoming religious in seminary, I really felt like marriage is the finish line, the goalpost, and I have to get there. And there's so much pressure, and I understood the assignment. Like it was loud and clear, and it was toxic, and it perpetuated horrible relationships for me, and tons of pressure on myself and stress on myself, because I was thinking like, oh, if I want to be that frum girl, then here's what I have to do. And it's like, yes, there's a lot of pros to that, because it perpetuates Jewish continuity, and we have a lot of people getting married, Baruch Hashem, and so much family is emerging all the time. But at the same time, there's so many consequences on our mental health.
So many consequences. And can you imagine what happens when someone thinks that's the, so to speak, like you said, finish line, and they get married and they're not happy, and they get married and there isn't this like magical abundance of goodness.
Ooh.
What do you think happens to that marriage? What do you think happens to that relationship? What do you think happens to that person? It's so toxic, because life is ever evolving. We're ever developing. And if we're taught to believe that this is, like you said, and everyone says it, which means to educators listening, everyone is saying it because they're being taught it. And we know that healthy marriages are very rare. The goal isn't to get married. The goal is to be in a healthy, happy relationship, and to be able to securely progress and expand, meaning code word for stay happily married. I'm sorry. So I like to say, like, when we learn Torah, we didn't learn about our avos and imahos once they got married. It's not like, and Avraham came into being after he chose Sarah, and this is his story.
Wow.
We learned about all of them before. And then when they get married, there isn't this like massive expansion of elevated greatness and consciousness that at least I understand on a simplistic level. It's just like, and then they got married, and then we move on in the story. So I think that we learn from Torah how we're supposed to operate. It's the blueprint of Judaism. So I think there's a lot to learn, and just kind of like meditating on that concept.
I love that so much. And I wanted to ask you as well, why you think that there is such a like why people who are married are ascribed a little bit more, a little bit or a lot of bit more value and like
Yeah.
worth and honor. Like, where does it come from?
Worth and honor. Well, I think that everybody wants to feel accepted. So I think that if anyone is blending in, then automatically they're accepted and automatically there's more like, so to speak, like you said, worth to them. I think about maybe high school, the cool kids, right? How come they have more value?
Yeah.
There's like a certain level of acceptance of, so maybe if someone does what is notable in the community, then they've become accepted. So there is more like, I don't know if the right word is that there's more honor, but there's more acceptance.
Like status.
Yeah, it feels like there's
why does
higher
your status
status.
go up? Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like you're like everything you have to say is is smarter and you're more respected. People believe that maybe like society believes you're more mature now that you made this important decision. It's a great question. I'm not so sure why there's more like honor, but what I do know is that when someone doesn't go according to the system, when someone is different, I think it challenges our own insecurities and we're very quick to judge. We're very quick to put down.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What do you mean by it challenges our own insecurities? Like as if a married person is like speaking to a single person and then they're insecure in their marriage when they meet the single person?
I think it's possible that, let's say they speak to a single person who's had a lot of time and they've used that time really well and they've just decided to pursue a degree in something really significant. And someone meets them and is asking about what they're doing and they say, I'm an optometrist, I'm an eye doctor. And they're like, wow, that's impressive. Okay, interesting. And they go home and they tell their kids, so-and-so is 30 and she's an eye doctor. And you know what? It's so upsetting to see women just choosing career over children. Maybe this woman never chose any degree, never went to college, and her thought process was marriage is my whole life, children are my success. And she's honestly maybe a little bit bored now because her children are older. And she feels like it would have been nice to feel like I had something I worked hard for.
Wow.
That's what as someone with a psychology background, whenever we judge, it's usually because we feel insecure. So, I think that if someone meets, again, someone single and they're traveling a lot, right? And someone says something like, well, it's probably very empty, all their traveling. Like, the most fulfilling thing in the world is a relationship. It's probably very empty. Why can't you just be happy for them? Like, wow, that's so cool that they're traveling.
Yeah.
Because they're jealous.
Ooh.
Maybe they wanted to travel and they couldn't travel.
Hot take. I love that. Yeah.
I mean, I think we do it a lot with celebrities. We're like, whoa, they're so successful and they have so much money and they have so much fame. And like, I'm sure they're all depressed. We need to, listen, there's a lot of truth to it. But we need to say that because we feel insecure with what we're lacking. So I would say on a deeper level, it's possible that this is what's happening, which makes me feel, which is natural. It's human nature. Everything we do is to protect our ego. But I would love for people to be happy for others, especially if they're lacking.
Wow.
Especially if they're lacking.
Right. I love that. So I am so inspired personally by how you go around speaking so openly about the most vulnerable topic that we all feel so much shame around, unfortunately. How has it affected your own reputation, and how are you not afraid of it affecting your reputation?
Great question. So I'm going to say this a few times because it's so important. Everything we do evolves from our view of self, our self-esteem. So how we dress, how we act, the careers we choose, the relationships we have, our day, it often revolves around our relationships. Like, how did this person treat me? How do I feel about myself because of how they treated me? Was I left out? Do I feel proud? I want to say, like, thankfully, I feel very secure with who I am. I feel very proud of who I am. I've worked so hard on myself. Someone actually asked me in a different interview, what's my greatest accomplishment? And I said, so far me.
Wow.
So far me. I've worked so hard. And my dad, he passed away when I was 14, and he had a very clear sense of MS. He used to always say, there's so much sheker in the world. There's so much falsehood. And it's funny when you ask me that question, like, what about your reputation? I understand it because I know that the reason why no one has spoken up is because of their fear of reputation. And to me, I feel like I feel like believing that man has power over how I should live my life is a manifestation of insecurity, of falsehood, of shaker. I mean, like, again, if you look at our avos and imahos, everything they did was so abnormal in relation to the lifestyle they lived. They were all so brave, and I
Right.
didn't think I was doing anything. I did think
You're
it was
so
brave.
brave.
Thank you. I did think it was brave. I thought it was a little crazy. I did think like I will get blacklisted, and
Right.
that's okay because I think this is what Hashem wants from me. And I think that's really the foundation behind a lot of what I do. Is this what Hashem wants from me? Am I posting because I feel pretty, or am I posting because I think this is what Hashem wants me to say? I think our
Wow.
intention behind what we do plays a significant piece in whether we can do it and in whether we could recover from it, what we're doing. And I don't get only positive feedback. I definitely have some people that don't support what I do. Thank God it hasn't been majority at all.
How do guys receive it?
How do guys receive it?
When they're
I
saying, "What do you
haven't.
do?" and you say, "I'm on the Shidduch
So
date,"
I
and you
don't
say,
say
"I'm
that.
single."
When they say, "What do you do?" I say, I'm a therapist and coach.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
they say, "Oh, I think I saw you on Meaningful People talking about
I'll
the
say,
Shidduch."
I'll say maybe. I'm not sure. Not because I'm ashamed, but because it's something that I did that was one part of my life that has become my whole life. And when I speak and when I advocate and when I do this work, I'm still in it. So it's very hard. Before I did this BCE, I guess we could say BCT, before the common Tzipora, I was and I still am a big believer that like I want there to be my whole life, and being single is a small part of it, even though everything we do, where we live, our lifestyle, our schedule is a byproduct of our stage. But it's so unnatural, unbearable, and painful that I didn't want to focus on it in that regard. And the work I do is like
Of course.
highlighting. So I guess I would say on a social level, how do people respond? Thank God it's really been so positive. Was I ever insecure or concerned of what it would do to my reputation? No, because I really believe it's what Hashem wants me to do. I really believe there's like a lot of amazing work the community can do. And I think that there's a lot of reactive conversations, especially in politics, especially socially. And I feel like there's so much proactive work that we could do that could enhance like Klal Yisrael as a whole, that could enhance the people I care about, that could enhance their lives. Like my own daughter, God willing, like I would never want her to look at this stage with so much shame. And I remember when I was in graduate school and we were learning about different stages of development and learning that this stage, like 20s to 30s, I think it's called young development. It's I think relatively new. There's so much exploration and insight and excitement and discovery, and none of that is welcomed or introduced when someone is introduced to the concept of like dating and you should get married right away.
And you should fit into the perfect box.
Yeah.
And if I can't summarize you in a paragraph on a Shidduch resume, then you're kind of weird, and good luck finding anyone.
And like it's everything the person's evolved into up until this point. And I think when people are asking like, what are you looking for? It's really like you're asking who I am,
Right.
and what's most
How do
important
I
to
say
me.
that?
And if someone hasn't met the right person, and I want to say I get messages from a lot of people who say, I was told I would not get better, and I chose this person, and I'm not happy. And I chose this person, and I am pregnant, and I am not happy. And it's heartbreaking. And we know that divorce is so rampant. And like, I don't know why there's so much pressure and there's so much rushing. The goal isn't to get married. The goal is to become the happiest, healthiest person that we can be. And every person in the community contributes to that. So we want to be happily married. We want to be a positive impact in someone's life. But I never was concerned socially. And I think that's only because like I said, I had this like drive. I'm like, I really think this is what Hashem
You were
wants
doing
me
it for
to.
a greater good. You have a
Yeah,
mission.
I
You're a
think
girl on a mission.
yeah.
How do you think we could alleviate some of the stress and some of the pressure that we feel to get married? Because like you're saying, it's not the end all be all. It's not the goal. You can get married and God forbid not be happy. So how can we alleviate that so that singles don't feel so isolated and like.
Yeah. So there's a macro and there's a micro. On a social level, we can alleviate that when we stop talking to people simply and only and exclusively about them being single, because then it changes their perspective as the focus of their life. If someone thinks that all that matters is whether they're married or not married, then it's the sole focus of their life. And if you don't have something that's the focus of your life, as you can imagine, you can't be happy. So socially, we have to be more inclusive. We have to be more kind. We have to eliminate this social norm as very much not a norm, right? To just talk to people about being single. We have to welcome in who they are, independent of where they are. And this isn't just for single people. This is if someone is in any stage of life. This is for a mom. Why do we always have to approach a parent and say like, well, how many of your kids are married? Where are you married? Do they have kids? Like, I don't know. Again, if you're not an expert socializer, then like, you don't have to socialize.
Right.
Ask about today. Maybe just ask about someone's day. How's your day going? And talk to them about how your day is going in an authentic way. The other questions create like shame and pressure and insecurity. And what if someone doesn't have married children? And then what? You're going to start to say like, well, maybe I know someone. Maybe they didn't want to just be your chesed project for that time being. Maybe they didn't want to just be sharing one of their greatest challenges while they're getting their nails done with a stranger. Right. So socially eliminate it as a social norm. Education, understand that it is grueling. It is asking someone to run without feeling like they have legs. It is asking someone to perform on an optimal level with them feeling like they don't have the skills they need. Understanding how difficult it is for someone that is single to not have what they want and to stay successful and happy and religious and part of a community. As a community, be inviting, be intentional, be warm, because so much of our religion is based off community. So if someone doesn't have something that welcomes them in the community, like being in a relationship, like being able to host, like having children, still welcome them in, invite them over for coffee, invite them over for Shabbos. Shabbos happens every week. If someone lives alone or even with family, it's really difficult for them to figure out what they're going to do for Shabbos. Chagim are so painful. I have people that private message me, no one knows this. I don't keep Shabbos if I didn't get an invitation. Sometimes I don't keep Shabbos if I live on my own.
Wow.
It's too painful for me. What am I supposed to do? What do I think Hashem wants from me?
And this week is Shavuos, and the Yom Tovim, like you said, are so difficult.
Hard.
So if you had to make like a singles survival guide for the Yom Tovim, because it's no small feat, what would you tell the singles?
Okay. I would say with every plan in advance. When something is making us anxious, we usually push it off. I don't want to think about it.
Right.
And procrastinating doesn't give us peace of mind.
Guilty.
So for me, on Monday, I know what I'm doing for Shabbos. And then I anticipate it the whole week. I sometimes like to plan many Shabbosim in advance so that I don't have to worry about it. And I'm anticipating it. I'm excited. Make plans in advance as best as you can. Think about what you want to do. Spend the money you need to spend to get there. You won't regret it. If it's an airfare, don't think, the drive is too long. It's too annoying. I'm too drained to do that. You won't regret the uncomfortable work it takes to get to really good company. So I would say plan in advance. A lot of people don't.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. Because they just think like, I'll get invited out, or...
Maybe they think they'll get invited out. Maybe they're too stressed out. Maybe they have like a lot going on and they're just thinking like, this is something that requires time. And I also have to do an emotional intake. And I don't know what I'm going to need when it comes closer.
Exactly.
Which is also something people don't understand, that when someone is, I think anyone, like our needs are constantly evolving. But like we're very sensitive. So I don't know if I'm going to need to be around family. I don't know if I'm going to need to be around friends.
And people are like, Pesach is coming in like 2 months. Where are you going to be? And you're like, I don't know what I'll need in 2 months.
Yeah. So I would say it's even safe to set up a few like plans, like reach out to people and say like, is it okay if I consider you as a possible option?
Right.
So that you know you have options. I would say that's really important. It's so important to protect yourself in a really good environment. So don't subjugate yourself to like default if default isn't healthy, if default isn't comfortable.
What if it's just dealing with loneliness on the chagim? Like, what do you tell singles?
It's so hard, meaning like it doesn't matter what they did, they're just feeling lonely.
Or they go to the meals, they come back, and they're alone like a 3-day Yom Tov. You know what I mean? Like, that's hard.
Yeah, and that's the answer. It's really hard. It's unavoidable. Sometimes you can do whatever you can. You can be in a great place, and something can come up, and you could feel overwhelmed with loneliness. And maybe if I was, I don't know, pretending to be above the challenge, I would say, well, talk to Hashem. I would say, well, read a book. What would I say right now? I'd say, get a glass of wine, drink it.
Drink it.
I would say, it's so easy to say what someone should do when you're not emotionally distracted. So in this safe space, meaning in this space of clarity, maybe I would say like, be great. People will throw things out like, be grateful. I want to say to all of the self-help coping mechanisms, sometimes they work and sometimes, you know what, it's a wave. What happens in a wave? The water gets up your nose. You're coughing. You're thrashing. You don't know where to get out. So someone might say like, oh, swim, and then you'll get out of the wave. Right. But what happens when you're asking like, what if you're in the wave?
Easy for you to say, I'm drowning.
Yeah.
Right.
What if you're in the wave? The most realistic and practical coping mechanism that I guess I could give if someone's like, I'm feeling really lonely.
Where is he?
Right. Is to like really do a intake. Like, what am I feeling? I'm feeling really lonely. What do I need? I really need to be with someone. My instinct is to cry on my bed. I'm going to give myself 10 minutes and then I'm going to go to my neighbor and, I don't know, have her company. I like to give timelines to our grief. Sometimes we get really stuck.
Yeah.
So I would say, be honest with what you're feeling. And then if it's an option, ask yourself, like, what do I need and is it accessible?
Wow. So feel your feelings
always
to an extent and then kind of nip it in the bud and go force yourself to
yes.
nip it in the bud.
So I would say whatever you're feeling, it's only natural and normal, and feel it. If possible, it's not always possible because it's very hard to know what we need when we're by ourselves. Sometimes if we're emotional, if possible, don't get stuck. So feel it, but don't get stuck. Mm-hmm. We're always striving for the balance. So feeling it means I might go on a walk and cry. It means I might go to a friend's house and just vent and say, this is really not fun. It's so hard. Mm-hmm. And then like move forward. It's not push it away. It's not neglect it. It's feeling it. And then how can I move forward? Mm-hmm. What do I need to do? What do I need to hear? Who do I need to be around to help me move forward? Do I need to be around my nephews and nieces to help me move forward? To have a completely different shift in my mind right now? Do I need to read a book? Do I need to go to sleep? What can I do so I don't get stuck? So it's feeling
like a victim.
Right. And someone might be stuck and they're not doing anything wrong. They're just trying to survive.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. I am so inspired by the work that you've done and that you've spoken about in terms of self-love, self-compassion, because building your own self-esteem, because I feel like there's not as much emphasis on that in Shidduchim as there needs to be, because it is such a crucial part of just surviving the Shidduchim is how to validate yourself, how to make yourself feel loved, feel worthy, build your self-esteem. What would you tell the singles who are listening who want to start that journey of doing that same work?
Okay, so great question. I'm going to switch your choice of words. Doing this does that work. You said the work I did, I'm still doing it.
Right, it's every day.
It is constant. It is so constant. Therapy is life-changing. I love therapy. I go to therapy. Me too. Believe that if you want to excel in any area, you speak to a professional and they can help you get there. The beauty of therapy is that it's clarity of distance. So we don't have clarity when we're emotionally distracted by our feelings. It's very hard. But someone that's professionally trained, notice the words professionally trained, because people will say, I don't need a therapist, I have my friend. I don't need a therapist, I have my mentor. I have my rabbi. Do they have professional training? They can be supportive and loving and insightful, but someone that's professionally trained can help you have clarity to learn new patterns, identify unhealthy ways of thinking, process grief, trauma, challenges, and help you develop your tools. All of these people that someone described are a tool in the toolbox, but you want to be able to carry that toolbox and not have to look for the toolbox that has your tools. So you can turn to these people, but they should be a tool, not like the box.
Yeah, you don't want to rely exclusively on your rabbi.
So I would say, like 90, maybe like 99% of our day is based on how we view ourselves and the relationship we have and the way we operate. But yet we spend so much more time on our image, on learning about how to make more money, learning how to spend more time at the gym. We need to really dedicate time to this. So that time is spent in therapy, that time is doing exercises with coaches, that time is doing an intake. It's learning, it's reading. I almost want to say what's the word I want to use? Like sign up for your own self-discovery course. Like attend your own university of self-discovery. Really set up a schedule set for success. And the best way to do that is to have someone that can hold you accountable. So whether, again, that's a therapist or a coach, like you have homework, you have things that you're doing so that whatever work is your goal, throughout the week, you're focused on it.
Right.
And the best, we always want to make sure our time is valuable, and accountability works really well when we're paying for something. It just does. If someone has a gym membership, they're like, oh, I'm wasting money. I have to go. Right? Even if someone orders a meal and they don't want to finish the whole thing, they're like, I paid for this, so I'm going to eat it. So don't feel discouraged by fees. It's the greatest investment that you'll make, and make it a priority for yourself. So for my birthday every year, this is what I do. This is my own little exercise, my own little Rosh Hashanah. I reflect on what I'm proud of from the previous year. I anticipate my goals for the new year. And that way I could celebrate who I became, so there isn't shame and sadness, and I could get excited on what's to come. And they're not New Year resolutions. It's my new game plan for the year. Like
wow.
I'm really focused on it.
Yeah.
So I think it's a matter of knowing what you have to gain and really being committed to the goal. So someone can say, oh, that sounds nice, I'm going to do it. Are you committed to the goal? Or is it like a manicure that you'll get when it works for you and then you're so happy when it gets done, but then it gets messed up because you didn't maintain it? I guess for a man, I would say, is it like the gym? Like you go sometimes, it feels good, and then you forget. And before you know it, you're like, oh man, my progress has waned. I want to say self-growth, or the absence of self-growth, is like dust. So how does dust work? It's not that you see it come on yourself. All of a sudden one day you turn around and you're like, wow, there's so much dust. I guess I haven't been consistently cleaning my shelf. If you're consistent in a goal, you will always ultimately see progress. If you're not consistent in a goal, it can take more time, and often that doesn't contribute to the success of progress. So I would say if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, whoa, I really want to, this is my life, and I want it to be as best as possible, and that means it's not based off of what I get, but who I become,
Ooh.
Then I'm going to do something consistently. Maybe I'm going to listen to an audiobook consistently. Every time I'm in the car, I'm going to listen to Mel Robbins.
I feel like it's a lot about self-talk as a single. Like I'm saying, if you're single and you feel really disheartened and every day you're like, where is he? I'm davening. What's going on? I feel like the most important thing you could probably do is validate yourself and talk as kindly to yourself as possible, because otherwise what you're going to be met with in the community is the shame, the stigma.
Yeah, it comes down to what's your reality.
Right.
I guess I would say that's really, like the bigger answer to the question is, what's someone's reality? What's the theme song of your life? Is it that every day you wake up and feel like you're not enough because you're not where you want to be? Or is it that every day you're angry at God and saying, why? Or is it that every day you say, I accept what I don't understand, and I'm committed to making today as best as I can?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's your background? What's your foundation? What's your value? What's your, like, a Sarah Sadibros? Like, really, what do you live by? What narrates how you feel? what you focus on. And again, as a community, we've like emphasized so much focus on nothing matters until you're married. So individually, someone has to change what they're focused on if that's how they feel and that's what they think. And self-talk is one of the key ingredients. What do you tell yourself?
We have to rewire these like neural pathways that have
Rewiring.
been totally like
It's
ingrained in
scientifically
us.
really rewiring. It's neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is changing the way your brain thinks.
I'm really
changing the
trying
way
to
your
do
brain
this.
operates.
I'm trying to always tell myself, like, validating myself throughout the day. Every time I pass through a mirror, I'm so pretty. Every time I pass through a mirror, I'm enough. I'm valid.
That's amazing.
I'm trying really hard to do this work.
That's
because
not
it's
most
hard.
people's instinct. When they pass a mirror,
No.
their instinct is, ugh, I don't like how that looks. They focus on the thing they don't
100%.
like.
Or always needing validation from other people. Like, I'm trying
Yeah.
to just do this work of validating myself.
You
It's
go, girl.
so hard. But I think it's crucial for Shidduchim. So you are also a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
For people who want to get coaching and they are so hopeless, they're in Shidduchim, it's really difficult. How would you coach them?
Yeah.
What would you tell them? What work would you have them do?
Right. Oh man, I always tell people, I'm like, welcome to boot camp, but get excited because you'll see results. So we first do an intake. What's their reality? And I check all the different buckets of their life that contribute to their satisfaction and fulfillment. So where are you holding socially? Where are you holding spiritually? Where are you holding physically? Where are you holding recreationally? Where are you holding professionally? We do a real intake to see where they're holding in their level of fulfillment in these categories that contribute to the satisfaction of life. That's where we would start.
So basically showing them you're not just your singlehood. Your life is not going to be fulfilling if you hate your job, hate your friends, you have no community or social life, you don't have hobbies you enjoy. It has nothing to do with your single status. You're a whole person with multi different parts.
Well, yeah, like it has to do with their reality. And sometimes people don't do any inventory check because they were taught to believe that they can't be happy until they're married.
Right.
Or they just got very stuck in feeling like, I don't know what else to do. Can I be happy? Even if a lot of people I meet with have very high EQ and they've worked really hard on being a healthier person, but they just, like we said, got stuck in these habits of thinking a certain way. And it's really like dismantling and recreating a new reality. But I can't tell them what to do. I don't tell them what to do. I help evoke that from within because every person has a different need, has a different default setting that's based off of their experience, their exposure. And it's really analyzing like, what's toxic in my life? Let's eliminate that. What's really great in my life? Let's increase that. What's balanced in my life? Let's give attention to that. It's something that anyone in any stage should really be doing.
Yeah.
But sometimes if they're overwhelmed, they don't. Sometimes if they don't believe that there's better, they don't. Sometimes if they're in denial, they don't. We should always be doing intakes. Like if someone's feeling dissatisfied or not well, it's like, how come? Right? How come?
I love that. Because when you're single, it actually does afford you the opportunity to do the most self-work.
Oh, yeah.
And self-growth that you can. So I want to kind of end on a positive note. Everyone who's listening right now, and they've heard you say, if they've listened to you on Meaningful People, that there is no shidduch crisis. Every time I hear you say that, it's like, phew, sigh of relief. I'm like, wow, I could listen to you say that all day.
Yeah.
Why do you think there's no shidduch crisis? And what would you say to give hope to all the people who are listening who are like, girl, have you seen there is a shidduch crisis? You're not living in real life.
Yeah, people will say that to me. People will say that to me. Well, I first want to say they have a tremendous amount of a hakaras hatov to Meaningful People because when they interviewed me, when they invited me to speak, I know they were nervous too. And it wasn't like, I wasn't like endorsed by anyone. It was this like crazy girl from Muncie, New York that got on stage to say something that people don't talk about. So I really have a lot of hakaras hatov to them. And since then I've been endorsed by the OU. I've been endorsed by, I guess any city I've gone to and their community rabbi. So I do have a lot of hakaras hatov and I just want to say that. But what would I tell people who about the shidduch crisis and people who believe there is? So everything again comes down to your reality. What do you believe to be the reality? And I've been taught, and we all have been taught, that nothing exists without Hashem. In od milvado. we're taught it all the time. It doesn't stop in Shidduchim. We're taught it all the time. Now we're in a crazy, unfortunate period with Israel and loss and grief and hostages. And there are people who say, well, there's no hope. I'm sure that how can anyone be okay? How can people still be alive? And then we see that people are. How can people be saved? And then we see people are. So I want to say that nothing's too big for God, and he's not on a break in Shidduchim. If you learn the Beis HaLevi on Bitachon, if you learn the Chovos HaLevavos on Bitachon, it all says the same thing, that man is not in control. It's an illusion. God is controlling everything. And if we believe that God is your Avinu, your dad, then a parent only wants to do what's best for their child. So someone says, but what about a shtadlus? Correct. A parent will guide and encourage a child to make choices that will bring them closer towards healthy goals. If man is trying their best, God's not like, oh, well, tried guiding you and Tzipora, like you missed the boat. So too bad. No, a parent's going to do whatever they can to make sure their child gets something that's for their best if the parent can control it. I want everyone listening to know that every second that their heart beats, every breath they take, it's a reminder that God loves them. He didn't stop loving them. This belief that something is wrong, this belief that they're not enough, it's not Torah. Take a sefer and learn it, and it's not me, it's Torah, it's Hashem, it's what we're told to believe and yet have forgotten. So I don't care if science says that there's more men than women. What do you tell a doctor? Meaning, like, if anyone throws out these defenses to me, if they want to debate, and I'm pretty good at debating.
Right. And I've heard the stat that you say where I think it's
there's stats.
96% of Orthodox people are married by the time they're 30 or
and the
something?
OU did a research project. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, there's high stats and
people are getting married.
The same way a doctor might tell someone, you can't have children, and they can't have children, and then they do. God doesn't work according to science. He doesn't work according to facts. He doesn't work according to social expectations and norms. Every person has a tikkun, and no one will live your life better than you. So do what you can to take this incredible gift of time and live it as best as you can. It doesn't mean things stop hurting. It doesn't mean you're trying to learn how to live without feeling like you have what you need. But you're in so much more control of enriching this life that no one's going to make better for you. Even marriage, it's an enhancement, but it's not a magic trick, right? So eliminate there's no crisis for parents, for educators, for matchmakers, because honestly, holding on to that belief, even if they disagree with everything I'm saying, is not servicing the community. It's not doing anything good.
At all.
So that would be my parting message, to really work on your relationship with God, because if you don't feel this way, it's very, very hard, almost impossible, to consistently feel some form of peace of mind and then ultimately happiness if you don't believe there's purpose to pain, you don't believe there's there's purpose to the process. Everything else is fleeting. It's a distraction. A vacation is a distraction. A new piece of jewelry is a distraction. An experience is a distraction. We want to feel stable. We want to feel consistent. I don't think that can happen without God in the picture.
Wow. Your bitachon, your Emuna is so inspiring. It's absolutely unreal, and you're living it.
And I want to say I'm not an expert. I struggle a lot. Last night I went to my friend's house and I just said, I don't get it. It's so painful. It's so hard. I don't get it. I don't want people to think the expectation is they should be invincible in their Emuna, that they reach this place of like, oh, I'm here and now I don't struggle and there's no pain. I think that's setting people up for failure. It's hard and I'm still in pain and I still struggle, but that doesn't mean we stop practicing, because we know that as we practice, we get better.
And there's always going to be some sort of problem. Like you said, even when you're married, there's still pain, there's still issues. It has nothing to do, it's just having patience for the processes of life and for all the problems that we have in life.
Patience.
Wow.
Oh yeah, patience is a big one.
Patience is a big one.
We learn to be very patient.
Is there anything that you would tell the shadchanim, just like, don't do this?
There's a lot I would tell them. It's
Don't
on
say this,
YouTube.
don't do this.
It's called Things Shidduchim Should Know.
Oh, okay.
I gave a talk. That's my first talk I gave with Lior Elin, who's a powerhouse and was my partner in crime. And there's a lot I would tell them, but the most important thing I would say is please practice humility in knowing that what's in your control is whether this person feels better when they hang up the phone before they spoke to you, whether in person or on the phone, than after. That's in your control. Did they feel hope or did they feel depressed?
Yeah.
Did they feel dignity or did they feel transactional, like another product? Did they feel like you cared or did they feel like you judged? I think that someone can practice with the right intention as a shadchan if they have humility. I know I'm just a messenger. So my opinions, my ideologies, got to suspend those a little bit because I'm a messenger as to whether or not this is the right person for them. And my job is to provide a positive experience, not to determine what they do deserve, what they don't deserve, what they should get, what they shouldn't get. I think humility and that understanding is really important.
Do you think we ascribe too much power to shadchanim?
Yes.
Yeah. I totally feel that.
I do think that we need to give them a tremendous amount of akar satov because their work is unbelievable. But I think the more power we give them, the less power we give God.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I hope that everyone listening really can take with them, can borrow some Emuna and some bitachon from Tzipora. She's so inspiring. And you can do the work too. You can work on your Emuna. You can build up your trust, build up your self-esteem, change the way you talk to yourself, and change the way you relate to your reality in Shidduchim and beyond. Thank you so much for sharing your message with us today. I really gained a lot.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And if anybody ever needs help with their Emuna, on my social media page, I have something called Stories of Hope. We're at number 91 today, and they're all stories of people who thought it would never happen, and then it did.
No way.
Yeah.
Wait, no way. Can we hear about that, actually? I want to hear a little more. Like, for real? Like, there's people who think I never...
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, people who thought I would never get married.
91 people that I've collected. I'm sure there's a lot more out there.
And they thought I would never get married.
Yeah, they were scared. They were concerned. They were told things can't happen, things won't happen because whether they were married or whether because of their background, their history, their experience. And it did. And they share their story.
Wow.
They share advice they wish they would have known and what helped them get through the process.
Amazing. What's your Instagram so people can find that?
Tzipora Grodko.
Okay, let's look up those stories, you guys, and follow her on socials. And we'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Take care.